Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started with this morning's adult forum, which is titled Meet Our City Managers. And our applies to not only the cities of Mankato and North Mankato, but also to the fact that our two city managers are members of Bethlehem Lutheran Church. So as a historian by trade, just to give you a little bit of a background on city manager form of government, how it kind of developed, evolved, and what it is compared to the more traditional mayor city council form of government. And then after that, I will introduce our speakers and let them run with the show. The city manager form of government is one of the two most common forms of local government in the United States, along with the mayor-council government. It is where a city council that has been elected by the people appoints a city manager to administer municipal affairs under its supervision. The city manager is chosen on the person's administrative ability and is responsible for drafting a budget, enforcing policies, and overseeing day-to-day operations of the city. This system of government is used in 40% of American cities with populations of 2,500 people or more. Phoenix, Arizona is described as the largest city in the United States to retain a council manager government. The city manager council form is much like they describe as a publicly traded corporation. Under this form, an elected governing body, usually called a city council, is responsible for legislative functions such as establishing city policy, passing local ordinances, voting appropriations of money, and developing an overall vision, which is similar to what a corporate board of directors would do. The council then appoints a city manager to oversee the administrative operations, implement its policies, and advise it. The manager position would then be similar to that of a corporate chief executive officer appointed by a board of directors. In terms of the history of the city manager, the concept of this was the product of a number of ideas coming together in the late 19th and early 20th century. Probably the most foremost influence of this was the progressive movement. The municipal reformers of that time wanted to get rid of the city, to rid cities of the pervasive political machine form of government, such as the notorious Tammany Hall and boss William Marcy Tweed in New York City, as well as the abuses of the spoils system. The thought was to have a politically impartial administrator or manager to carry out the administrative function. In other words, clean, professional government. Staunton, Virginia is credited as the first American city to appoint a city manager in 1908. This appointment attracted the attention to the fledgling profession and caught the eye of Richard Childs, who would become known as the father of the council manager form of government. The first large city to adopt this council manager form was Dayton, Ohio in 1913. So that's the background, and now the introductions. Our two local city managers are Susan Arntz from Mankato and Kevin McCann from North Mankato. And we've asked them to share the following information with us and to field all of the questions that you have. Share a little in terms of the background on their professional careers, in other words, what brought them here today, major issues that perhaps both cities are dealing with now in managing their respective cities. What do they like most about their jobs? What do they find most challenging about their jobs? And perhaps what strategic vision do their cities have for their future? So without that, here's Susan and Kevin. Thank you for being here.
kind of feel like we just need to say, and we're done. So you now know what city managers are. For the longest time, my mom couldn't remember what my title was, and I would get introduced as the city planner. And most people in cities know the mayor, they know the police chief, the fire chief, and that's about it. The one thing I will say is that in city government, there literally is a job for every interest. If you like tech, we have tech. If you like to work with your hands, we have maintenance work. If you like creative work, we have work at the event center or in Park and Rec. We literally have a job that can fit almost any interest. When I do this presentation for about 3rd or 4th grade classes, we play Stump the Manager, and I try to ask them to give me a job or something you'd study, and I'll tell you where it exists. And usually ballerina and astronaut come up. But in fact, at event centers, we hire ballerinas, we hire dancers all the time. The city of Hopkins has the Hopkins Performing Arts Center, and they have ballerinas there all the time. And although we don't have astronauts yet that work for us in Mankato area, there are many people who have trained at NASA that work in the National Weather Service and do other things, work out at the airport, for example, and so we have a lot of that. So Kevin and I are going to talk a little bit about, we're going to kind of tag team here, but this is, the first thing I want you to know is we're actual people. So we have families, we go grocery shopping, we have to pay bills, we have weeds in the yard that don't go tended, and this is my crew. You have our daughter Anna, our daughter Kira, who's here. Kira, wave your hand. Our daughter Ellen and her partner Abby, and they've been together for 5 years, so Abby's kind of our bonus child. And then my husband Jonathan, wave your hand. And then not in the photo, but we are also blessed in Mankato to have John's mother living nearby, so Sherry, raise your hand. So we're really lucky to do that as well. And John's dad is living in St. Peter presently in the nursing home up there, so we're really, really lucky. This photo doesn't really show the adventure that happened after the photo was taken. We went ziplining in these shirts with friends of ours. We were quite the sight, that's for sure. And then we do have a pet. You know, a lot of people talk about their dog or their cat. You know, we have a weird pet. We have a hedgehog named Willow. She is like petting a hairbrush. So, the underside is like fleece hair. It's so nice. Yeah, she's soft. But part of this is to show you that we're actual real people. And so sometimes the phone calls Kevin and I take aren't for people saying, wow, what a great job you did. That was so awesome. This winter, we know that was challenging. But boy, your team did a super job. We don't always get those phone calls. And so we also know, though, that just because we don't have those calls, there aren't people that don't feel that way. Sometimes we hear from people who get really angry. And sometimes we hear from people who we have a different point of view, and that's okay. That's part of what makes the world really great, right? If we all thought the same thing, it'd be a little boring to do this, right? But so this is just to let you know, we're actual real people, and Kevin has slides similar to this as well. So a little bit about me. I grew up in Cross Lake. I'm a Pequot Lakes High School graduate, so that's the water tower there for Pequot Lakes. I went to Augsburg College for my undergraduate degree in political science, sociology, metro urban studies, and religion. So those last 3 are all minors. At Augsburg, the way that they had their system, if I took 2 more classes, I could get a religion minor. If I took 2 more classes, I could get my metro urban studies major. And I was pretty good at figuring out how to get things to count twice. So it was good. And then I did a master's program at Hamline University in St. Paul in public administration. So this is kind of the career path here. The upper left corner, that's the dam in Cross Lake. So my very first government job was working for the federal government at the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I worked in the office. I was a park ranger. for about 2 summers in downtown Cross Lake. If you've ever been to the campground there, it's operated by the Corps of Engineers and it's fabulous. In the upper middle picture, that's the Hennepin County Government Center. I worked for 2.5 years for one of the Hennepin County Commissioners as an intern, and I did everything from, it was way back when, so it was, I'm 50, so this was, in my early 20s, so 30 years ago, no internet, DOS-based computers, he used dictaphone, less laws about doing things while you were driving, and he would dictate while he was driving, and so occasionally he would give commentary about the people on the road while he was driving, and so when I would type his dictation, I would sometimes add those things because I got to proof it before, it never got emailed because email didn't exist back then, so it was a pretty fun job. And then I worked for the city of Shoreview doing economic development. In Shoreview, I honed a skill / talent / burden that I have what I would call professional ADD. So I like to work in all the different departments. If you asked me to sit in the finance department and do analysis or build budgets all day long, you would not get the best out of this gal. So in Shoreview, I learned a lot of that self-awareness about what do I need to be, how to work in this field. And, it got to a point 2 months after the internship there started, the work they had planned was done. They're like, yeah, this was supposed to be a 6-month internship and we're 2 months in. And I'm like, okay, well, let's just see, maybe give it a week and we'll see if we can find some things. And I heard that the HR team was looking to update policies. I said, I can do that. I'd never done that, but I could do that. The Public Works Department needed to update their safety program. I said, I could do that. And again, this is all before the internet, right? So how do you do that? You find resources, you call people, you borrow other people's policies and programs and create things. In Shoreview, then I went in the lower left to Chaska, and I served as their administrative assistant and economic development coordinator. In Chaska, a big part of my work was doing downtown redevelopment and then industrial economic development work. I also started their first newsletter ever, a lot of those kinds of things. Then I went to New Brighton and was the assistant city manager in New Brighton. There I was in charge of technology, HR, and then the support staff that supported engineering, community development, administration, and so did lots of little things. And then in the lower right corner is Waconia. That's where I was before I came to Mankato. And I spent 3 months shy of 20 years in Waconia. Bob said that one of the things we're supposed to talk about is what brought you here. What I will say is, what brought me here is somewhat my professional ADD. This is a bigger organization and there are 77 services that the city of Mankato operates and provides. And in Waconia, being there as long as I had, I've seen everything, done many of them 2 or 3 or 4 times. And so it was an opportunity to get a challenge. Your prior city manager called and asked me to consider it, and I, at the time, had a daughter who had just started her 11th grade year, and a daughter who was 6th grade? 7th grade? And I said, I'd be crazy. This is like, time and place. It's not, I was in a job I loved, a community where I could walk around and knew almost everyone. Then I said, well, why? And those of you who know my predecessor, he went on for about 45 minutes and talked about why. And I said, okay, I'll give it a look. And so, and then in pursuing it a little further, I thought, this could be a good thing. This was a good opportunity time-wise for me. It's an hour away, so for about 1.5 years, I commuted the hour back and forth, and generally it was fine. Then Baba asked us to talk about what do we like most. I like doing all the things. I like touching all the things. I like playing coordinator and educator. A lot of times the phone calls we get are from people who just don't know. And so we kind of always have to start with, let's talk about kind of the how did we get here, or what brought us here. The things I don't love is that I can't solve everything, and that there are only 24 hours in a day. If you ask my family, all three of them would say I work a lot, but I also play a lot. So, work hard, play hard is kind of a motto in our family here. But I know you're going to have questions, so I'm going to talk through these things, and I'm going to let Kevin introduce and talk through his slides too. So some of the major city projects, things you should be paying attention to for at least the next year. We are at the beginning stages of our strategic plan for the next 5 years for Mankato. We hope to wrap up this strategic plan work in about May, June. We are now at a stage where we'll start engagement. So depending on your connections in the community, you may hear us or our staff at different events or different opportunities to kind of weigh in and share some feedback, and we welcome it and need it. The water resource recovery facility improvement, this is important. This will be the most expensive project Mankato is ever going to do that none of you will know we did. But every one of you will know if we don't do it. The sewer, it's essentially the sewer treatment plant. And in Mankato, the plant is about 50 years old. We provide services for a number of our regional partners, and the plant is failing. And we know that it is. We need to be out for bid in early 24 to be able to get this project started. It's going to take a couple of years to get done. But this is the one service that no one ever wants a return on. But again, it's going to be the largest infrastructure project we're going to do that you'll never know we did it. And it's good, right? You shouldn't know that we did this. But if we don't do this, at some point, it won't be good. And we are starting to see different pieces of this plant fail. In the plant right now, our staff are taking broken pieces of equipment to some of the fabricators in the community to say, can you make us one of these? We don't need it to last for 50 years, we just need it for like 3 to 5. Can you make us one of these? Because we can't find parts anymore. We last week had another section of the plant fail, and so we have to make some modifications in operations. What do we do now? And so if we don't get this project started next year, it's not a good thing. So all eyes are on this major project for our region to get that off the ground. We're very excited to partner with Blue Earth County on this shelter and supportive housing project downtown. For those of you who've been in Mankato for more than a minute, or probably more than 10 minutes, where the old bus garage used to be, kind of behind Cub, over in that area here downtown, we have a project where we own the land, we're providing some funds. Blue Earth County is prioritizing some of their ARP funding to assist with construction of a shelter and supportive housing project. We're really excited about this because it starts to provide that stage of home ownership or kind of resident occupancy, right? Of people are at various stages, and we need a couple of different stages for people to be able to navigate with and through. So we have a grant currently in front of Minnesota Housing. A few weeks ago, the House Capital Bonding Committee was here. One of the people on the bus was the commissioner of the housing commissioner here for the state of Minnesota. So when she got off the bus, I said, come with me, I want to show you where your money is going. And I showed her the Sinclair Flats project and the Lewis Lofts project so that she can see where the money is actually going. And then behind that is the shelter project. So, I don't waste an opportunity, right? And then next year will be probably a project that not many of you will love during construction. It's never fun to live through construction, but we will be working on Riverfront Drive. A section of that will be under construction next year. We will get through it. Our engineers are keen and know that no one loves to live through construction. They're people too, so they don't love it either, but they have a job to do, and we're excited to kind of get that project kicked off. A project that maybe not everyone's following, but Kern Bridge. That project is going to start next year. We acquired a section, a bridge that was a federally protected bridge that's historic, and we made an application several years ago, and that bridge will be the start of connecting Sibley Park and Land of Memories Park. So we're really excited to get that bridge installed. I've seen one rendering or iteration of we have to build the abutments for the bridge, and I've seen that initial rendering, and it's going to be a great addition to our trail system. And then the last is the air traffic control tower study. We have been working with the FAA on adding an air traffic control tower out at the airport. Our airport is the second busiest airport in Minnesota, largely because of the university. And if we want to continue to see that level of involvement and activity in the community, at some point we will have to work on this air traffic control tower. The good news is the FAA pays 90% of the project. So it's a good partnership for us, and they move slow. So it takes time and patience. So I have a couple of slides in here just quickly, and then we'll get to Kevin. We did a community survey last year. This is a list of things that we asked. How important do you think it is for us to focus on these things? The things at the top of the slide are kind of the highest priority. So economic health, 89%. Quality of utility infrastructure, 88%. That tells me we've done a really good job talking about the WRF, or the Water Resource Recovery Facility. Quality of natural environment. People in Mankato really appreciate the natural environment here, both from a climate perspective, but also from a resource perspective. Feeling of safety, the quality of park and rec opportunities, opportunities for education, and you can see the list here. Then we asked, how important is it for the city? You know, the previous slide was the community, so that involves all of you too, right? But this one is, how important is it for the city to respond? And availability of quality, affordable housing, public safety, the ADA design of our city projects and buildings, climate change. Those are the things that resonated loudly with the majority of our community. As we work through our strategic plan, these are the things that are kind of interweaving into those conversations. With that, here's my partner.
Thank you, Susan. Let's give her a round of applause. So I'm Kevin McCann, North Mankato City Administrator. Thank you, Bob, for the well-explained definition. I'm a city manager, but technically I'm a city administrator. But within the code are provisions of my title that would be reminiscent of a city manager, but statutorily is still a city administrator. Unfortunately, Susan gets the cap as being a city manager. But I like to ask, how many people are North Mankato residents here? All right, several of you. How many have been North Mankato residents for over 10 years? 20? 30? 40? How long have you been there?
Since 1962.
Oh, wow. Well, great. So I'm, the North Mankato. You guys had your hands raised? So I work there but live in Mankato, so I kind of like to bridge that connection, metaphorically and physically by maybe rebuilding some of those bridges that were torn down in the past. But I think Susan and I have a great relationship, and as we'll explain a little later, some of the projects we are working on together. So my family is my wife Holly, who's back there in the audience. If you want to wave your hand. Miles is 9, Isabel is 7. They're both at Sunday school right now, and then our dog Drake, who's Chocolate Lab, 10 and a half, and Jack knows Drake very well. So a little about my background. Grew up in St. Paul in the Mac Groveland neighborhood till I was about 11, and then my family moved to Savage and went to Burnsville High School. So my first city job was when I was about 15 as a rink attendant at the Savage outdoor hockey rink in our neighborhood. And then my second city job was with the city of Lakeville when I was in high school as a lifeguard at their beaches, which they no longer have lifeguards there, and I don't believe there's been any drowning since. So it wasn't really, when I was there, we didn't really have any issues. It was more just being the babysitter, like don't throw sand, you know, that type of stuff. After high school, went to University of Minnesota, majored in economics, and then not right away, but as I got into actual city administration, I decided to pursue my master's in public administration from MSU, and it was really a part-time process. I was working full-time, going to 1 or 2 classes a semester, and so I did get my master's in 2012. So I talked a little about my first city jobs, but my actual jobs in more of the administration side started with Scott County in their budget and finance office. So being an economics major, I kind of like the numbers and budgeting and all that, so it really kind of fit me. But then my first job after that was with the city of Clarkfield. Does anybody know where Clarkfield is? I always like to ask that question too. Susan does, but or a few of you. It's way up by Marshall and Granite Falls, Yellow Medicine County, some 30 miles from the South Dakota border. I was there about 1.5 years before going to Gaylord, and I was there for about 8.5 years as their city administrator, and that's where I met my lovely wife, Holly, and we got married in 2012, so 11 years now. And then after that, came to North Mankato as their finance director, so getting back into the budgeting and financings of city government. And then about 1.5 years ago or so, my predecessor left, and I just saw it as a great opportunity to get back into the city administration side. And like Susan explained with why she likes her job, it's the variety for me as well. You know, you get to be involved with the planning, the long-range vision for the city, helping people with their issues, hoping to resolve it, but that can also be the double-edged sword where maybe you can't solve the problem the way the person wanted, so, you know, you kind of don't feel a little bit of hostility towards that, but you try and come up with solutions that are beneficial to both sides. And then, yeah, we probably never get the thank yous, but I know a lot of residents will thank police department, Public Works for, you know, big blizzard, they'll go out there and bring cookies or donuts or something, so it's always great to see people do appreciate the services we provide, but we never get those, but we don't do it for the thank yous either, so. Some projects going on in North Mankato. The biggest one that I came into right away when I was started in June of 2022 was the city acquired the old Norwood Inn Hotel on 169. People know where that one is? I like to ask this question too, and Susan probably gets a kick out of it, is do people know where that boundary is between Mankato and North Mankato? Well, the easy part is the river up until you get along 169, and then there's the old riverbed that kind of cuts between where the old Perkins was, Plaza Jalisco is now, and then it kind of snakes through there, comes up the old Oxbow back there and comes back around. But so this is in North Mankato. We get asked about the redevelopment of the old Dutlers all the time. I'm like, well, that's a Mankato project, but you know, the boundary's just like right there. So we acquired that. The vision at the time when it was acquired was the city's going to run this hotel. We're going to renovate it. We're going to run it as a hotel, and maybe eventually sell it to a private developer to run it as a hotel again. In my mind, it was like, is this really a city function to run a hotel? Nobody's really successfully ran a hotel, maybe in the country as a city. There was one example in the state up in St. Paul, but I think that failed pretty quickly too. With city government, we're not very efficient, you know, bureaucracy, to run a business very efficiently, you know, have that one owner who's making those decisions, but we'd have to run everything back to the city council. We have 2 meetings a month, so to make changes that a business needs would take a lot of time. So we flipped the script and said, well, let's just try and find a developer now that would possibly want it, and talked to a few along the way, but ultimately came up with, it was Max DeMars, Marty Walgenbach from WW Communications. They kind of are getting into this development game in the region here, and they saw vision to use a lot of the hotel space as apartments, and then some of the old banquet rooms, the restaurant that was there as commercial space, find some tenants that will go in there. So it was about a year-long process for them to actually acquire it, and then about the end of September is when they acquired it, and then immediately started gutting it, and now if you drive by you can see they're up on the roof redoing things up there. Another big project up by the northwest corner of town in our industrial park is the Gordini facility. It's about 110,000 square feet. It's their warehousing and distribution center for this upper Midwest region. They're currently in Mankato, North Mankato. They're just kind of consolidating their facilities into this location. And it's going to have about those 70 jobs. They do have expansion plans if they continue to grow. Another question I like to ask, who here has heard of Gordini? Nobody?
Gordini, what are you talking about?
Gordini is a winter clothing manufacturer. They make gloves. Like if you were going to the Shields and you knew a pair of gloves, there's a whole entire rack of Gordini gloves. Bought our kids these gloves years ago, and they're probably the highest quality gloves you can get for kids. You know, they've held up really well for them. So I'm a good supporter of that company, just on a personal level. But it's nice that they're located in North Mankato now. In the upper right-hand corner is something that I don't see Derek Brown here anymore, but something that's been near and dear to him, something that's been in the works for years, is this indoor rec facility that's proposed up by the Caswell softball complex. It's about 110,000 square feet as well, of 8 basketball/volleyball courts on the one side of it, the right side, and then this side would be about 6 tennis courts when it's fully constructed. That facility is about up to $25 million, and we've gone to the legislature pretty much every year for probably 4 or 5 years, and it went from about 15 million to the 25 million. So that with those costs, we're trying to get the legislature to help pay for half of it, and we have a local option sales tax that would cover the city's half of it. So we again submitted a request earlier this summer and had a bonding tour with the committee a couple weeks ago. So we're hoping, you know, this year is the year, or 24 legislative session, I should say, is the session that we get that funding. And then the bottom right is just how it would fit on that location. So you got the 6 softball fields, and then in this big grassy area is where the facility would go. There's Fallenstein, and then the playground, and then we have a splash pad here as well. So parking lot would shift a little to account for that splash pad, but generally there is enough space for everything up there. The one thing maybe Susan wants to come back for now is something we're working on together. It's the Highway 169 improvement project, and maybe we'll start from north heading south, and Susan can kind of explain what's going on with their section.
So I'm not an engineer, but I play one during the day, or I play one on TV, I guess. So MnDOT has plans to do work through the 169 corridor, and in advance of that, we partnered with MnDOT, Nicollet County, and Blue Earth County on creating a corridor study and evaluating what should the corridor look like, so that we can have a loud voice, because MnDOT will need the local governments to kind of consent to the improvement that as we go through there. So I don't know, the engagement was more than a year on this project, and So on the north side, what you can see is there's an intersection currently by Quick Trip that will all shift south
This is McDonald's here, so it's kind of flipped. So this is north over here and south over here.
And so so that intersection shifts over to River Lane, and we'll have a roundabout at River Lane. And then as you go further south, then that's where it hits into North Mankato.
So one thing that was, again, this was before my time, I'll say, but Susan was a part of, I think, all those meetings, was that we wanted to maintain these two access points within the two different cities. Mankato was flexible with at least moving it down to allow that staging for 14 instead of backing up at the light. But North Mankato was pretty clear that we wanted Webster Avenue to stay open, which is here. The old Norwood Inn is right here. So worked through all those committees and engagement sessions to come up with that roundabout design that would accommodate that. One thing I like to ask too, people probably have strong opinions about roundabouts, right? I personally love them. I wish they were at every stoplight or four-way and just slow down and keep moving.
Well, and roundabouts are actually safer than a signalized or a four-way stop intersection. Roundabouts remove the prevalence of kind of the T-bone crashes, and so you'll have more of the front quarter panel, rear quarter panel. We can't fix everybody because not everybody grew up driving roundabouts. So I mean, you have an opinion, and that's great. They are safer, and they're safer for pedestrians as well, because the pedestrian is crossing outside of the area where the traffic is making the different movements and transactions. So they're crossing in the throat of the roundabout rather than at the actual intersection. So that's one thing that Minnesota, over the last probably 12, 15 years, you've started to see the introduction of roundabouts. The other half of my family, the Arntzes, grew up in New England, and there's roundabouts everywhere there. And they don't function perfectly there either. It's a concept that you have to learn and be taught how to drive. And so the biggest thing I could say as an advocate for roundabouts, please don't stop in them. And if you see an emergency vehicle in the roundabout, the best thing you can do is get out of it so that they can go where they need to go. But we have been working jointly on this, and part of the reason we show this slide is that the roundabout configuration is our locally preferred option. And through the passion and the work that we've done with MnDOT, we've been able to secure this layout. And they earlier this year, they informed us that they've consented or agreed that this is the layout that they're working on their design with. What's important about this is, if not this, it would have been the J-turns like you see in St. Peter. And with the volume of traffic and the type of traffic we have here, those J-turns don't work as well in this setting. It's really challenging to have somebody merge into a lane of traffic and to cross 3 lanes of traffic that in St. Peter are driving 65 miles an hour. It's really challenging. In this segment, it would have still been 50, but that's a really big ask to get people to cross and be able to merge across 3 lanes of traffic to be able to make that U-turn, so to speak. And so we don't have that situation here. It is possible that as you go further south, where on 169, kind of south of town, where the traffic volume is significantly less, that may be an alternative that MnDOT explores south of town. We've done a lot of work with our freight haulers and with our trucking community that have facilities down in there to work on adding some acceleration lanes and do some work so that it functions better for their drivers. I'm seeing a couple heads nodding, so some of you may have seen some of that interim work that we've done recently with MnDOT to try and help make that happen. So that's as hard as it gets. These jobs are random. We don't touch everything that people are interested in, but we touch a lot of the things. I brought a piece of paper and a pen so that if you ask me a question or Kevin a question that we don't know, which is possible, I'll write it down and we'll follow up. What are you curious about? What rumors have you heard?
It's not a rumor, but Greater Mankato Grove has also recently done strategic planning, and certainly the cities are involved in this, but maybe you could talk a little bit more about the relationship of both cities with Greater Mankato Grove.
Yeah, so the question was, Greater Mankato Growth is working on their strategic plan, and how does our work kind of connect and work with that? Greater Mankato Growth is still in the process of working through that plan. The stage that they are at with this plan is doing some engagement around certain topics with different affinity groups. And Kevin as a staff member, and I have certainly served on their team that's been kind of directing some of that work. We both have been involved in a lot of those meetings, and part of the timing of Mankato's strategic plan, we delayed the implementation of our strategic plan a whole year because I wanted to make sure that there were a number of processes going on in the community, and I wanted those processes to get closer to finish so that if, depending on what comes out of those processes, we can incorporate it then into our process. Rather than do all of our work and then have them come up and say, well, no, city, you should really be doing this. And then I'm looking at a plan over here going, okay, how do we do that too? I think my impression is that, Kevin can certainly answer this, but my impression is that North Mankato has been doing some of that same work as well.
Yeah, that's correct. We've been involved, it was started before I came, that's why there's a different staff person on that steering committee, but basically multiple staff members have been attending all those different engagement sessions, like providing feedback. We're very involved with GMG in terms of being on the board, donating to or having the contributions toward RETA, the economic development arm of GMG, the city center partnership, working through all that. So we like to take what they're saying, help implement that as well, and vice versa. They're trying to attract those businesses that we feel would fit in our community as well.
What else?
So what is the timeline for completion of the 169 project?
Completion is maybe up for weather conditions, but start date is 2027 currently, and that could be subject to change as well, because MnDOT's saying they got so much funding they have per year. A lot of it in greater Minnesota is all getting shifted up to Duluth to Harbors, or Duluth Superior Bridge, rebuilding that, and I'm sure that's up to billions now, and maybe they'll have to steal some money from this project to go back toward that, so it's all potentially up to change.
It's very money driven.
On that reconstruction of 169, does that include any changes to the interchanges between 14 and 169?
So the question was, does the 169 improvement include changes to the interchange at 14 and 169? It does not. MnDOT plans in 24 or 25, they will do some engagement with the communities on the 14 improvements, and that's when they plan to talk about the bridge at 14 and 169. We have included or had conversations through the 169 piece about how important that configuration is, and I'll say we had initial conversations about how that should function. Some of them were a little emotional, but more from MnDOT's side, but good conversations, and MnDOT plans to do another set of engagement on 14, so we'll be involved in that as well. One of the pieces that we have been more interested in is how it looks when you drive through town. On December 6th of 2021, or 2020, so a week after I started the job here, It was December, and it looked like this with maybe a little bit of snow, and or a little more snow. And I brought Kira down here to go hiking out at, and we ended up hiking around the Buffalo and had a great time. But the first things out of her mouth as we were driving through, Mom, you've got to clean this area up. And then she also asked where Costco was. So believe me, I hear it a lot at work, but believe me, I hear it at home too. So that's my strategic plan: is how do you build for the teenager. But, so 14 will come.
What can we as individuals or a congregation do to help build up what works you are doing and the goals that you have for our community?
I know one for sure is the indoor rec facility. The legislators do want to hear from the constituents that, hey, we want this facility in North Mankato. So even if you aren't a North Mankato resident, as a Mankato resident, there's still going to be benefits for you for that facility, because there's going to be the open gym times, the walking times, things like that. We are exploring potentially partnering with the YMCA to have a presence over there, and adding in like a walking track. So some things are in flux of what exactly will be in there, but the legislators are saying they want to hear from people on that. With 169 too, you guys are all probably going to drive on that at some point. So talk to Susan and I, email the mayors, the council members, us, to just kind of show your support for that project. Susan probably has more.
So in Mankato, one of the values we have is we do a lot of, I believe that we do this work with you, not to you or for you, that we do this together. And so we do a lot of engagement, whether it's playgrounds, whether it's street projects, and if you can't show up to the meeting, call us, send an email. We have our Every Voice Mankato where you can add comments. Those are great ways to stay connected and help support the work, because the councils in both communities, they really do value when they hear from people in the community. We don't have every angle figured out. We try very hard, but we don't have every angle figured out. And so your questions often are good, help us inform or reprioritize our project work. So that's a really good question, and probably the best question to end on, because I saw the water and the coffee go away and people. Okay, maybe last one.
I just wanted you to say you don't get thank yous, but North Mankato and Mankato have done a lot for recreation compared to other cities. The Turtle Lot project with the pickleball and the new swimming pool, the Kern Bridge and the different trails, and then your project, Coswell. That's great.
And get out and use the stuff. We build it so it gets used. So thank you so much.
I wonder what the anticipated speed limit between the two roundabouts and 169 might be.
You would think they're so close, you couldn't really get too crazy between them speed-wise, I wouldn't think. I mean, if you figure 20 mile an hour through a roundabout and it's, maybe a block to the next one.
My feeling is that currently in this area, there are more speeders through North Mankato and 169 with each other than any other road.
You're right, I think that you mentioned it's supposed to be 50 miles an hour. Thank you. I don't know too many